Welcome to the first annual Modernization Conference for yesterday's leaders. Please take your seats. One note we must make is that modernization is the transformation of a society from a rural and agrarian condition to a secular, urban, and industrial one. Now, we can get started with the festivities. Let's take a look at our rulers. The one, the only, Henry the 16th! And our next competitor, the fabulous Alexander Nikolaevich, or commonly known as Alexander the Second. And finally, the handsome Mustafa Kemal, known by his closest friends as Ataturk. We'll start first with Alexander II.
One of my most notable contributions was when I improved the education system here in Russia.
This is true. According to WASP, between 1856 and 1880, the number of elementary schools increased from 8,000 to 23,000.
Thank you. My favorite social policy would be the emancipation of the serfs in 1856, because I believed that the existing condition of owning souls cannot remain unchanged. It is better to begin to destroy serfdom from above than wait until the time when it begins to destroy itself from below.
This is a good point, Alex, but it seems as though it did have the greatest effect in modernizing. According to Michael Lynch, although serfs were freed from their feudal obligations, they were still indebted to the government and had to make redemption payments for the next 49 years. Therefore, they lost an average of 4.1% on their pre-1861 landholdings. The lack of government assistance led to a low amount of economic growth, as well as the majority of your population struggling to survive and make a living. These problems are what actually fueled your people's opinions and what caused them to revolt.
Hey, I did have some good economic policies that helped. The state finances were improved under my reign due to the industrial expansion. Railway expansion increased Russia's ability to export grain, providing Russia with money to invest in more industrialization.
And you are correct with your facts, because the growth in railways did enable farmers to send their crops to consumers farther away and sell their crops at a more stable price, which thus boosted your economy and your industrialization. Moving on now, are there any political policies and reforms that modernized your country?
I did create a new form of local government to my people. This centralized the government and allowed my people to share their beliefs and concerns.
It is true that you created a new form of local government called the zemstvas. Although, according to Lynch, the chance for the people's voices to be heard was crushed by the autocratic regime. The majority of the authority of zemstvas were nobility. The officials weren't elected, rather appointed by the central government, and this caused tension and oppression in the weaker voices. So in fact, the new local government put revolutionary thoughts in motion.
Now we will go to Ataturk of Turkey. Please tell us about your attempts to modernize.
Politically, under my policy of secularism, I separated church from state. This was a major step for Turkey because it meant religious authorities couldn't influence politics, which they had done throughout history. I also turned Turkey into a republic and became president of that republic in 1923. One major part of the republic was the Grand National Assembly, which represented the Turkish people's opinions and needs. Socially, I gave my people the opportunities for education. Under my rule, more Turkish people were becoming educated, which I think is the most important social aspect to modernization. My other main focus was women's rights. My goal was to give women equal opportunities as men. And finally, economically under my rule, I increased exports from $51 million to $115 million.
Well, Ataturk, you definitely did try to modernize politically, and according to Turkey's constitution, which was written while you were in power, sovereignty laid with the people. Yet you didn't follow through with this ideology very effectively. You turned Turkey's political system into a one-party system, so that there was no opposition to your party and your opinions. According to Habibi, you passed the press law, which gave the government the power to shut down any newspapers that opposed the government's position. Now, socially, you did give the Turkish people more opportunities for education. According to Bibi, under your rule, the number of schools doubled, the number of teachers increased by 133%, and the number of students increased by 300%. 100%. However, you restricted all religious freedoms. According to Habibi, you banned religious marriages, clothes, and worshipping at tombs. You restricted the Turkish people's freedom to choose which demodernized Turkey. Economically, you focus on agricultural farmers and encourage an increase in their production. So although you didn't modernize Turkey's economic system, you did put Turkey in a more stable financial position.
All right, Ataturk's going to be pretty tough to top, Louis. Are you ready to show us what you've done?
Well, politically I tried to be very understanding, no? To my most loyal subjects, those most often called the bourgeoisie, I am loyal. I allow them to buy venal offices, which let them have some judicial power and sometimes nobility. Additionally, I show my support to my dear friends, the Americans, by supporting their little revolution. Lastly, I accommodated my people when they wanted a political voice. They clamored for their estates general, so I gave them that right.
It's true, the venal offices were held by the bourgeoisie, but this position of power for them caused lots of corruption. According to Doyle, bourgeoisie were more interested in the glamour and social recognition of a uniform than in military efficiency. As for the American Revolution, your help in that war was extremely influential. But while this contribution is undeniable, your help was a huge dent in the French treasury. Turgot warned you that the first gunshot will drive the state to bankruptcy. And the States General, first of all, you caused their need to meet. Your power went from absolute to manipulated by the Third Estate, according to Habibi.
Economically, I did bien. We are a nation of strong agricultural background and have that factor going for us. Also, lots of people say that my citizens got mad about not having any bread. But you know, I would have given them some for my personal boulangerie at any time. Additionally, I had many taxes that helped keep the royal treasury afloat.
Louis, you're missing the point. Your people were hungry with no money and with no influence to get your attention. As stated by Doyle, over the century, prices, including those of bread, rose 3 times faster than wages. The lack of bread was a major influence in the start of the revolution in your country. Again, something you could have stopped. As for the agriculture, it was prosperous mid-century, yes, but for 20 years of your reign, the yield was awful, meaning it no longer hid the lack of productivity and antique methods. Historian Doyle focuses on the harm of your taxation. It hurt mainly the Third Estate and took away up to 15% of the peasant's gross product. Overall, your tax system was very corrupt with unequal taxation and tax farming. So, Louis, any social benefits?
The number of bourgeoisie doubled during my rule, an undoubtable plus. Additionally, the children of my country were taught by the best of teachers.
Louis, look. According to Doyle, as the rich grew richer, the poor grew poorer and more numerous. The increase of bourgeoisie wasn't really a good thing. As stated by Doyle, when you came into power, the French education system was in turmoil with the dismissal of the Jesuits. Yes, they were good teachers, but they were also forced to leave. Alexander II and Ataturk worked to modernize their countries with mixed results. Alex meant well through his policies, but only his economic policy regarding a national railway system and his social policies regarding education really modernized Russia. His political reforms of creating local governments consisted of officials that were chosen by him and not elected, which oppressed the people's opinions. His emancipation of the serfs did free peasants of their serfdom, but restrictions in this policy, such as being in debt to the government, took away from this modernization.
Ataturk tried to modernize Turkey, especially through his social reforms regarding education and his political reforms which separated church from state. However, his social reforms did limit religious freedoms, therefore limiting the people's right to choose, and his political party created a one-party government which oppressed all opinions that Ataturk didn't like. He tried to modernize Turkey, but many of his policies demodernized as well.
Louis XVI did almost nothing to modernize France. He tended to focus on his needs as well as the needs of the upper class, and not the needs of the peasants. His establishment of venal offices led to a lot of corruption because the office positions were held by the upper class citizens who were only interested in looking good. Economically, he put the country into debt by helping the American Revolution, which led to major food shortages and him failing to meet the needs of his people. Not only that, he also oppressed his people economically by raising taxes on those who were already struggling to survive, which certainly isn't modernizing. Overall, Ataturk and Alexander II tried to modernize, with some successes and failures, while Louis XVI had little to no intentions of modernizing.